to my 13th interview. I'm going to be here with David, most known as DKMagician, so let's go. First of all, for those who don't know you, could you explain to everybody who is DKMagician?
It's a good question to start out with, I think. For people that don't know me, my name is David. I go by DKMagician online. I've been posting videos on Instagram since about 12. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all people need to know.
Okay, also you're the content creator for OPC. So how do you stay creating videos and tutorials for OPC?
Oh, well, one of the founders of OPC. And then through there, I got introduced to Cam, who is just genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met. I saw you did an interview with him. It was very good. And 2019, Cam and Nate were like, we want you to be the magic content creator for OPC. But at the time I was in college and I was just so busy, I didn't really have the time. And I was like, listen, when I graduate, so I ended up graduating last year over the summer. And it was like, as soon as Cam found out that I graduated, he called me, he said, hey, you promised. And I was like, you know what, I did. So that's pretty much how it happened. Doing that since last year, I guess it must have been July or August. And it's just a blast getting to work with Cam and OPC. I think they're a great company. I love the cards and always good to do things with people that you actually.
Wait, so you can now do cardistry and magic. So which one you prefer, cardistry or magic? It's a difficult one.
Well, I wouldn't call myself much of a cardist. I could do about 3 cardistry moves. And like there are so many more talented people out there in the cardistry community. I don't want to tarnish the community by calling myself a cardist. So I think I would have to pick magic because it's the one that I started with. And it's certainly the one that I'm a lot better at.
And how you started doing magic? How do you start learning and?
Yeah. So I started doing magic when I was about 12, but the first magic trick I ever learned was actually when I was 8 years old. My dad showed me the very first card trick. It was a miracle. You know, when you're 8, everything that you see is magic. And so he showed me how it worked. And the next day I took a deck of cards to school with me and I performed that trick. I can't even count, maybe my classmates, just anybody. Hey, you want to see a magic trick? And then I never really got into magic until I was about 12 years old. And I was in 8th grade at the time. And one of my teachers had all these decks of cards lying around because the class was about 2 times as long as it needed to be. For the second half of the class, we would all just kind of sit around and play cards. At some point, I decided that I wanted to learn how to cheat at cards. So I started Googling all these things, how to cheat at cards. And then I realized that was a pretty dishonest thing to want to do. So I was like, okay, what's the most adjacent thing to cheating at cards? And that was magic. So then I started learning magic on YouTube and I would go into class just like I did when I was 8. I just show people the things that I was learning. And then eventually I got more into it, more years later.
Wait, so I asked people for questions to you in the OPC Discord.
Oh, good.
And here there are some questions for you. What's your favorite OPC deck?
Oh, that's a tough one. So it kind of goes back and forth. It kind of really depends on the season that we're in. Over the summer, I love the Squeezers V3. I think those are fantastic. The grapefruits, I love the color scheme of the deck. I love the metallic ink on the faces. Right now, this is a tough one. Man, I really enjoy the original Snackers. Yeah, the original Snackers, the yellow with the strawberries coming out. I think it's one of my favorites. If I had to pick like of an all-time favorites list, I think the new one that's coming out in a few weeks is one of my favorites as well.
What's your favorite deck outside OPC? No OPC.
No, if I couldn't pick an OPC deck, I would probably pick Tally-Ho Circlebacks. It's just a classic design. The cards handle amazing. And, you know, when you're performing magic for people, a lot of times they get weary when you're using like a custom deck and things like that. And so I think the Tally-Hos are just a nice, you know, it's a nice medium for me in between a custom deck and just like a regular bicycle deck. The design doesn't look assuming or anything like that. And the cards handle better than bicycle, just like regular bicycle standard decks do, in my opinion. I've been using the same Tally-Ho Circleback deck for Man, how many years has it been? I literally have it sitting right here. It recently got a bit of water on it, which is sad, but I've had this deck since I was 16. I'm 21 now. And I mean, look at that. That's practically, the edges are all yellow and gross, but it fans perfectly still. So yeah, Tally Ho Circleback's the go-to for sure.
What's the most used OPC deck you have? The one you have most
The most used?
Yeah.
Oh, the most used OPC deck I have is probably the new Snackers, the blueberry ones. Those would be the V3, the Snackers V3. I beat those things up. And I pretty much beat them down that one deck for the video I did with them. They had my song in it because I was like throwing them in the air and they were just like falling on the ground and all the corners are dented and stuff. But yeah, I love that deck too. That's probably my deck. I didn't mention the other seasons, but that's my favorite winter deck. I would use the Snackers V3. Really beat those up.
And what's the most used deck you have outside OPC?
Most used deck I have outside of OPC is this one, the one that I just showed. Like I said, I've been using it since I was 15. Look, the box doesn't even have the top is completely gone. They just fall out. I have to keep them in a clip. This is how they got water damage on them as well, because I forgot that they didn't have a top on them. And I think I put them in a bag or something, and then there was just moisture in there. And so there's like, I don't know how. This is the most beat up deck that I have outside of OPC. And yet it still handles like a dream. So shout out Tally Ho Circlebacks. Anybody that knows me knows that I love these things.
Next question from the OPC Discord. It's What's your go-to trick? The trick you
Oh man. So it depends on the situation. If we're talking about card tricks specifically, I think Double Exposure by Aussie Wind is one of the most. Obviously, right now, given the the global pandemic, performing magic like that, where you have to hand somebody props and be up close with them, is not ideal. So done socially distant and things like that. I love the Turner watch. I think that's a great effect. Obviously, I worked for Nobody Knows for a time, but even if I hadn't worked with them, I would still think it's one of the best tricks on the market. And then if we're talking about a card trick, I love Chris Ramsey's work on the Equivoque, which he teaches in his Murphy's at the Table lecture. I think it's really good.
Could you show us any of them?
Can I show you? Yeah, absolutely. Hold on, give me a second. Let me get my. You know what? I almost picked up the new OPC deck, but I think I'd get in trouble if I showed you that. So I'm gonna. So hold it here and frame with me the entire time, okay?
Okay.
So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that you have a deck of cards.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously have a real deck of cards in your hand, but we're just going to imagine one in your mind, okay? So in a deck, there are red cards and black cards, right?
Yep.
You're going to remove either all the red cards or all the black cards. Which one do you want, red or black?
Red.
Red, okay. And then take out all the red cards and hold them in front of your face like this. So you've got all the red cards.
Yeah.
Imagine that they're separated into hearts and diamonds, okay? Do you have a table in front of you?
Yep.
Okay. You're going to put all the hearts or all the diamonds just onto the table. It's completely up to you. Which one do you want, hearts and diamonds?
Okay.
Which one did you put?
Diamonds.
Diamonds. Okay, so you're still holding.
I have here the hearts.
Separate those hearts. Yeah. So imagine you can separate those hearts into numbers and faces. So numbers would be ace through 10, faces jack, queen, king. And I want you to imagine that you can magically throw either all the numbers or all the faces into the air. Completely up to you. Which one do you want?
The faces. I threw the faces.
The faces. Okay, so you throw the faces up into the air and they start to magically float in front of you. So it's the jack, the queen, and the king of hearts, right?
Hearts, yeah.
All right, okay. And grab two of those. Any two of them. Which two do you want me to grab?
The queen of hearts and the king of hearts.
The queen of hearts and the king of hearts. Okay, so I've got the queen and the king here. and I'm going to give one back to you. It's 100% up to you. Which one do you want me to give back to you?
The King of Hearts.
Of Hearts, correct?
Yep.
Now I want you to imagine that I'm taking the Queen of Hearts right now and dropping it into this box. Now you made all the decisions. This box has been here the entire time.
Yeah.
And I want you to see that the box is, there's one card inside the box, nothing else. And that card is, of course, the Queen of Hearts. So that's a fun go-to little thing that I like to do over Zoom.
Okay, next question. How many decks do you have right now?
You know what? I actually have a spreadsheet that I keep track of how many decks. So I let me open that up for you, and I will tell you to get to the card collection catalog. I will tell you that I currently own, oh my gosh, 363 decks. That's too many decks for a person to have. This is why I do so many giveaways, because I have too many decks. That's too many. 363 is too many. Yeah.
Next one. What's the least useful skill you have ever learned to do a magic trick?
The least useful. The most or least?
No, the least useful, sorry. The least useful.
Oh, the least useful skill that I've ever learned to do a magic trick. That is a really good question. That's a question I've never been asked before. Is that from the Discord, or did you come up with that?
No, the Discord is good.
Man, people with Discord are good. That's a great question. Let me think. Okay. The trick self-tying shoelace, which I learned when I was 13. There's a very specific way that you have to set up the shoelaces, and I can't imagine needing to do it at any other point in my life. I feel like oh man, I feel like that's not a great answer though.
I don't know, like, it's a very difficult question.
It's not a great answer. You know what? No, okay. The least useful thing. Okay, I'm gonna redo this. Least useful thing that I've ever learned for a magic trick was the swallowing the balloon trick, the really long balloon. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without. Well, first of all, I couldn't tie one of those balloons. So that's part of it. That's pretty useless. I mean, tying balloons is not exactly a skill that most people need. I could tie regular sized balloons, but for some reason the long, thin ones, I could never tie it. So I learned how to do that. And then amount of mouth agility. I don't really know how to phrase this without it sounding strange and revealing the trick, but I didn't have the strength to do it at first. So I had to train like my mouth in order to swallow and that's so useless. I'm never going to use that. Like I haven't even performed that trick in like 5 years, but like that. So I think that's a solid answer, is that I had to train my mouth to do that balloon swallowing trick. And it's so useless because you would never use that ability to do anything else.
Okay. Ridiculous, but
that's such a good question. I can't get over that. That's like a Hot Ones level Sean Evans type question. That's so good. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. That's a great question.
Okay. If you could only sing a song for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's so tough. Okay, wait, here's the question though. When I pick this song, do I automatically gain the ability to hit like whatever note is in the song, or do I just have to sing it in my like regular voice? Because like, if I could just go around singing like Bruno Mars, all day, I would absolutely pick like, that new track he has with Anderson .Paak, Leave the Door Open. But one song for the rest of my life. One song. All right, I'm pulling the trigger. If I had to sing one song every day, or just I could only sing one song every day for the rest of my life, the song would be Left the Car Running by Whales Talk. That's a relatively unknown one. It's a weird band name too, Whales Talk, but Left the Car Running by Whales Talk. That's what I've been listening to lately, so I'm just going to go with that. It's my gut instinct.
Great. Next question: How many instruments do you play?
I barely play the piano, and that's it. I actually have it right here. This is my MIDI keyboard. I was actually working on a song last night, but yeah, I played piano. I started playing when I was 8, 7, and I kind of played until I was around 10 or 12, and then I just stopped. And I was never like really good at piano. I was never like prodigious or anything, but I know basic chords. I kind of understand like basic music theory, and that's enough to get me by, like creating like the little songs that I make, because you know, more musically talented than me, and I go, excuse me, could you please help me with this? But yeah, I only play the piano and I barely play it.
Okay, I'll search the next one.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to young magicians in social media?
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions to answer, and it's one that I get a lot in my DMs. My number, particularly on social media, I think this applies to people that want to perform in person or online, is that you have to find your voice. I think this is something a lot of young magicians, particularly even myself at the time, struggled with, is you have to find your personality and your voice and your performance style. Because I see a lot of kids emulating, see a lot of kids emulating magicians like Shin Lim or Chris Ramsey or people that they just see online, you know? And I think that one of the things that's great about magic or any performance art is that you have the ability to make it completely your own. And that's what people are, at the end of the day, are going to be gravitated towards, is people who are original and people who are entertaining and people who aren't just a carbon copy of somebody who's already famous, like Shin Lim or Chris Ramsey. When I first started doing magic, a lot of people said that I sounded a lot like Dan and Dave. And that was in part because I watched the trilogy about 60 times when I was 12 years old. So I took away a lot of the performance mannerisms and the way that I speak. And I still do it today, I think. But what separates me from Dan and Dave is that I found my own personality online. Sometimes I say things like them, but when I perform, it's not exactly the way that they would perform a trick. It's the way that I would perform a trick. So young magicians out there, if you're watching this, my advice to you, find your voice and be yourself, because nobody can be yourself better than you can. I think that's an Oscar Wilde quote. I'll have to check on that later, but I'm probably misquoting him horribly.
Okay, so next question. I don't really understand this one, but what's your white whale in kites or magic tricks?
Let me Google this, but I'm pretty sure that white whale means the thing that you wish you could do, or that you're like in search of. Yeah, objective that is relentlessly or obsessively pursued, but difficult to achieve. My white whale in magic. Here's the thing, is that I think that a white whale in magic is something that a magic creator would often consider. You know, magic creators are often in pursuit of creating the perfect type of this effect or the perfect type of that effect. I don't consider myself to be a magic creator so much as a magic performer. I love to perform the work of other people because I think that the work other people do is so much more brilliant than anything I could ever come up with. My strength in magic is really as a personality and a performer rather than a creator. So for me, I think my white whale is not going to be about creating a certain type of effect or, you know, doing this type of effect. I think that my white whale is just kind of having the approval as a performer of other people in the magic community. And it might not seem difficult to achieve, but my imposter syndrome and my constant self-doubt of whether or not I'm actually good enough is, you know, weighing in heavily on this particular answer. So yeah, I think that I just want to be respected and even looked up to, maybe, as a performer in the Magic community, not necessarily a creator. I think that's my white whale. I hope that person isn't disappointed by my answer. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Great, and the last question from the Discord is, what's your everyday carry for doing Magic on social media?
Everyday carry for doing Magic on social media. Well, obviously deck of cards. That's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I'm used to. And I think that there's a lot of great card Magic on social media.
Okay, I
Like I
don't
said,
think he means this. I think he means like more about your camera, because he explained in another post. So I think he means your camera, your
oh, like my gear. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that.
yeah, I don't know.
Misunderstood that. So in terms of filming for
Yeah,
social media,
me too, and I asked him, but
yeah. In terms of filming for social media, I actually don't use my phone that often. If I want to do like super slow-mo stuff, I will film with my phone just because my camera doesn't shoot 240 FPS. But I use I'm like looking at it right now, trying to make sure I get the model number right. I use a Nikon D5500 DSLR to shoot pretty much all the content on my Instagram and YouTube. And that usually has a 35 millimeter lens on it and just a basic little shotgun mic on top. And if I'm shooting on my phone, like if it's with TikTok, it's just my iPhone 12. And yeah, nothing special at it. I don't use like any extra lenses if I'm shooting on my iPhone or anything like that. Generally, the only time I shoot on my iPhone is for like TikTok and stuff, which I haven't been using as much lately. So yeah, I don't really have an everyday carry because I don't carry my camera with me everywhere. It'd be pretty cumbersome to always have the DSLR. But yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. How do you usually learn your magic tricks? Like, do you own a lot of magic books, magic DVDs?
I've got a few magic books. I can't bring them out right now. They're in boxes because I had them on my shelf at college, and I still I haven't unpacked. It's been like a year. It's honestly really sad. But I'm looking at the box that they're in right now. A couple of Skarn books, and they're like really old ones that my aunt found at like just this mom and pop bookstore in like Tennessee. So they've got like a lot of character to them. Honestly, they're old and worn and beaten. So I have a few magic books. When I was starting out, I learned a lot on Theory 11, Penguin Magic, Illusionist, just all the typical sites.
Yeah.
YouTube, of course, is a great resource if you know where to look. If you're learning from the right people, and you're not just learning from Joe Schmo on YouTube that's teaching the move incorrectly or whatever. But yeah, so a few magic books, but I primarily learned online when I was starting out.
And do you prefer gimmicks or slates?
You know what? I think that gimmicks allow you to perform things that you would never be able to do with sleight of hand. And in that regard, I think gimmicks are great. But personally, I've always been a kind of impromptu, just give me a deck of cards. I want to be able to go to someone's house, grab their deck out of their drawer and perform for them. So a lot of the stuff that I do is gimmickless, but I think that gimmicks absolutely have their place in Magic.
And are you planning to release a deck, like your own deck?
I released Wonder when I was 17, 18, when I turned 18 when it came out. And at the time, I think I wanted to do more decks. And I certainly wouldn't be opposed to doing another deck in the future. But right now, I don't have any plans to release my own stuff. I think if I have a design that I enjoy and that I think is worth releasing to the public, I'll go for it. But doing the whole Kickstarter thing and getting prototypes and sending them out to people and doing all that right now is just like not financially feasible for me. But yeah, I think if in the future I have a design that I like, I can see myself doing another one. Yeah.
Also, I've seen your Instagram, and I've seen that you have collaborated with a lot of brands like OPC and Nobody Knows, as you mentioned before. Mm-hmm. And how do you contact those brands? Those brands contact you. How does this work?
Well, for OPC, like I said, I was friends with Nate and Cam. And so that was, that's just a natural fit. It's just like working with friends, which is always amazing. Places like Riffle Shuffle and Gemini Decks contact me. they send me cards and, you know, they say, you know, could you please make a video with this? I say, of course, because I love the decks. Same thing with people that are doing decks on Kickstarter. You know, they say, hey, I'm running a Kickstarter. I'd love if you could do a video with this deck so that I could post it on my page. I say, yeah, of course. People like Nobody Knows, who I worked for a time, were founded by Chris James and Rory Adams, who were two people that I was already in contact with as just friends beforehand. So really it's, you know, I've just been in a very fortunate position where I'm friends with a lot of creative and talented people. And those people have wanted me to work with them, which, you know, again, every day I think is a blessing. You know, I'm very happy to be working with Cam on OPC. He's such a nice guy. And I really love the decks that they put out. And then with Nobody Knows, like I said, Chris and Rory, two great friends, and were, you know, great bosses for the time that I was working with them. So I think that my general advice is to anybody that wants to get sponsorships and things like that is don't worry about necessarily contacting these brands unless you already have a great body of work on social media to show them. You know, if you're making these incredible videos and posting these great pictures on Instagram and, you know, brands still aren't contacting you, then definitely reach out. Say, hey, check out some of my posts. I think that we could, you know, come up with a way for you to send me some decks and I could make some content like this with them. But I promise you that if you make good content, these brands, they will come and they will want to work with you.
Okay, great. I think there are no more questions in the Discord.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thanks for accepting the interview. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I don't know if you have anything else to say, people who's watching this.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think it's great that you're doing this. Like I said, I went to your page and I watched your video with Cam because I'm not fluent in Spanish. I took Spanish in college, but is Spanish your main language?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, you speak English very well. Second of all, I think it's great that you're doing this. I think it's great to, you know, sit down and talk with other magicians and, you know, give the opportunity for people to talk, essentially, you know, see what we're like and not just see us behind a screen. So I really appreciate you reaching out to me and I really hope that you keep doing this. I'm looking forward to seeing more interviews in the future.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I've got.
Okay. Thank you very much.